When the war finally ended, Downton Abbey, once alive with glittering balls, laughter, and grand celebrations, fell silent. Its vast halls, which had echoed with music and chatter, now faced an unexpected role. Soldiers, battered by the horrors of war, arrived to recover, not in hospitals, but within the walls of this grand estate. The Crawley family, guardians of tradition and elegance, suddenly had to balance their luxurious lifestyle with a duty far greater than hosting dinners, healing the broken bodies and spirits of a generation. Imagine the contrast: the sparkling chandeliers above, and below, rows of hospital beds, men in uniforms instead of ball gowns, whispers of pain where music once soared. This is the story of how Downton Abbey, a symbol of wealth and privilege, became a sanctuary for those seeking recovery. When the war finally ended, Downton Abbey, once alive with glittering balls, laughter, and grand celebrations, fell silent. Its vast halls, which had echoed with music and chatter, now faced an unexpected role. Soldiers, battered by the horrors of war, arrived to recover, not in hospitals, but within the walls of this grand estate. The Crawley family, guardians of tradition and elegance, suddenly had to balance their luxurious lifestyle with a duty far greater than hosting dinners, healing the broken bodies and spirits of a generation. Imagine the contrast: the sparkling chandeliers above, and below, rows of hospital beds, men in uniforms instead of ball gowns, whispers of pain where music once soared. This is the story of how Downton Abbey, a symbol of wealth and privilege, became a sanctuary for those seeking recovery. Inside Downton Abbey, life had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The grand rooms, once filled with laughter and music, now held the quiet rhythm of recovery. Soldiers moved slowly along the polished floors, some leaning on crutches, others supported by steady hands. The staff, who had once perfected the art of silver service, now learned the delicate care of tending wounds, measuring medicines, and helping fragile bodies adjust to normal life again. Every morning began with a routine that balanced discipline and compassion. Beds were straightened, meals carefully prepared, and exercises guided with patience. Yet, it was not just the body that needed healing. Many soldiers carried invisible scars, memories of trenches, the deafening roar of artillery, and nights spent in fear. Downton Abbey became more than a place to mend broken limbs. It became a sanctuary for wounded minds. Nurses sat beside men, staring into the distance, offering quiet words, reading letters from home, or simply holding a hand in reassurance. In the drawing rooms, conversation shifted from gossip to courage, from parties to perseverance. The estate's gardens, once a backdrop for elegant promenades, became a place of small victories. A soldier taking his first walk without support was celebrated as much as a debutante at her first ball. The Crawleys, while accustomed to privilege, found themselves drawn into this new reality. They attended to the men with a mix of authority and empathy, discovering that leadership could take the form of encouragement, gentle guidance, and even listening. The house itself seemed to adapt to this new life. Long corridors echoed with footsteps and soft conversations instead of music and laughter. The grand chandeliers still sparkled, but now their light fell on scenes of quiet determination: a nurse adjusting a bandage, a soldier trying to write a letter, or a doctor checking a chart with meticulous care. Even in moments of hardship, there were flashes of humanity that defined daily life. Soldiers shared stories of home, exchanged smiles, and found camaraderie in unexpected friendships. Staff learned to celebrate small victories: a step taken without aid, a smile returned after weeks of pain, a letter received from a loved one that sparked hope. Downton Abbey, once a symbol of grandeur and tradition, now told a new story, one of resilience, courage, and quiet heroism. Its halls, filled with echoes of the past, had embraced a profound new purpose, nurturing not just the body, but the spirit of those who had given so much. Even with its polished floors and towering ceilings, Downton Abbey could not escape the weight of pain that had settled within its walls. Every corner carried echoes of struggle: a soldier wincing as he tried to move a stiff limb, a nurse quietly fighting back tears after comforting a man who could no longer remember home, and the Crawley family watching helplessly, wondering how to balance care with the expectations of the estate. The grandeur of Downton seemed almost surreal against the harsh reality of recovery: silk drapes swaying gently over beds where courage was measured not in words, but in small, trembling victories. Life here was not easy. Many soldiers faced invisible wounds far heavier than their physical injuries. Nightmares of battle crept into sleep, leaving men restless and anxious. The staff, though devoted, often worked beyond exhaustion, their own hearts heavy with the weight of so much suffering. Simple tasks became monumental: feeding, dressing, and walking alongside men who were relearning how to live. Even laughter was rare, appearing only in fleeting moments, a fragile reminder of life before the war. And yet, it was in those small moments that the true spirit of Downton shone. A smile exchanged over tea, a hand squeezed in silent encouragement, or a shared memory of home became acts of quiet heroism. Standing against the shadow of despair, the estate itself seemed to absorb these struggles. Long corridors, once echoing with music and celebration, now resonated with soft murmurs, tentative footsteps, and the occasional groan of pain. Nurses moved like shadows, their presence both invisible and vital, attending tirelessly to each need. The grand halls, with their portraits of generations past, bore witness to the resilience of those within. Even the gardens, usually a place of beauty and leisure, became arenas of small triumphs, a soldier taking his first independent steps along the gravel path, a nurse encouraging a hesitant smile, a doctor noting progress with quiet satisfaction. Yet, the greatest challenge was emotional, accepting that not all wounds would fully heal, and that patience often felt endless. The Crawleys and staff discovered a new kind of courage, the courage to face helplessness, to nurture hope where despair lingered, and to find meaning in acts that might seem ordinary but carried extraordinary weight. Downton Abbey, once a symbol of unbroken tradition and luxury, had transformed into a place where human spirit was tested, resilience was nurtured, and every quiet triumph, no matter how small, became a victory against the shadows of war. Time moved slowly within Downton Abbey, yet its walls seemed to remember every step, every whispered word of hope, every quiet act of courage. Soldiers who had once arrived broken, hesitant, and uncertain, gradually learned to walk, to smile, and to speak of their futures again. The estate, with its grandeur now tempered by purpose, had become more than a building. It had become a symbol of resilience, of care, and of humanity. The Crawley family and staff discovered that their role extended far beyond tradition or duty. They were custodians of healing, witnesses to lives forever changed. Within the stately halls, even long after the soldiers left, the echoes of their time at Downton remained. The bedrooms that had been transformed into wards still held the memory of quiet bravery, the corridors still bore the imprint of perseverance, and the gardens remembered the tentative footsteps of recovery. Downton Abbey, once only a stage for elegance and privilege, had proven that its true strength lay in its capacity for compassion. The estate had opened its doors not merely to house the wounded, but to restore dignity, to nurture hope, and to remind everyone that even in places of luxury, the human heart could find its deepest purpose. The legacy of this chapter was not just in the lives restored, but in the lessons learned. The Crawleys understood that grandeur without humanity was hollow, and staff realized that their care, patience, and dedication could transform despair into hope. Each room, each hall, and each garden became a testament to the quiet heroism of ordinary acts, feeding the hungry, comforting the anxious, guiding the unsteady steps. Downton had shown that healing is often found in consistency, empathy, and the unassuming kindness extended day after day. As the sun set over the estate, casting golden light through the grand windows, Downton Abbey stood not just as a relic of the past, but as a living story of resilience. Its halls had witnessed suffering, strength, and transformation. Soldiers left with bodies stronger and spirits steadier. Families of staff carried forward memories of courage. And the estate itself had been forever changed, no longer just a home of privilege, but a sanctuary of compassion. Downton Abbey's role as a convalescent home had proven that even the grandest spaces could hold the humblest, most profound acts of humanity, leaving a legacy that would echo through generations. Within the stately halls of Downton Abbey, every soldier carried a story. Some had arrived in silence, shoulders tense, eyes haunted by memories of the battlefield. Others were more vocal, sharing small jokes or fragments of home, trying to stitch together normalcy from the chaos of war. The estate, with its high ceilings and ornate walls, seemed to lean in, listening to each story, absorbing each whisper of pain and courage. For the Crawleys and the staff, it was not just about care, it was about connection. About recognizing the humanity in each man who had sacrificed so much. The nurses became confidants, teachers, and even friends. In quiet corners, letters from loved ones were read aloud, tears wiped away, and voices offered gentle encouragement. A soldier, struggling to lift his arm for the first time, found himself cheered on, not only by staff, but by fellow patients, forming bonds that bridged pain and perseverance. Even simple gestures, a shared cup of tea, a carefully polished pair of boots, a hand placed on a shoulder, became acts of immense significance. These small moments wove a tapestry of trust, hope, and resilience within the walls of Downton. The Crawleys, too, were transformed by these connections. They witnessed courage, not in battles fought on distant fields, but in the quiet victories of recovery. A soldier walking unaided across the hall, a smile returning to a face that had known only sorrow, a letter read aloud that brought a glimmer of hope. These personal stories, once foreign to the family of privilege, became central to the life of the estate. They reminded everyone that healing was not only physical, it was emotional, mental, and profoundly human. Even the rooms themselves seemed to tell these stories. Each bed, each chair by the window, each garden path walked slowly by a soldier, carried the imprint of struggle and triumph. Downton Abbey had become a living archive of courage, a place where personal victories were celebrated quietly but fiercely. By the end of each day, the grand estate that had once symbolized wealth and tradition now represented something more enduring: connection, empathy, and the extraordinary ways ordinary people could support each other in times of deep need. In every shadow, in every quiet moment, the faces behind the wounds left a legacy that would echo through the halls long after the soldiers had gone. The quiet halls of Downton Abbey held more than polished floors and grand chandeliers. They carried stories of struggle, perseverance, and resilience that no guest had ever imagined. Every day brought new challenges. Some soldiers faced pain that refused to yield, while others wrestled with memories that haunted them in waking hours and in sleep. Nurses worked tirelessly, often stretching themselves to the limit, comforting men who felt lost in a world that had once been familiar but now seemed foreign. Even the Crawleys, accustomed to managing an estate with elegance and control, found themselves confronting moments of helplessness. There were nights when the silence was heavier than the grandeur, when the weight of so much suffering pressed down on everyone within Downton's walls. Yet it was in these very trials that the estate's quiet heroism shone brightest. A soldier who had refused to speak for days finally whispered a word of gratitude. A hand, stiff and unyielding from injury, managed to lift a pen and write a letter home. Tiny victories became monumental celebrations, not with fanfare, but in the shared smiles of staff and patients. The Crawleys learned that leadership meant patience, empathy, and courage, the kind that does not command, but listens, supports, and encourages. Downton Abbey was no longer just a symbol of wealth or tradition. It had become a classroom for humanity, a place where ordinary acts could hold extraordinary power. Even the estate itself seemed transformed by these experiences. The gardens, once purely ornamental, now echoed with cautious footsteps of men relearning how to move. The drawing rooms, once designed for grandeur, became spaces for reflection, conversation, and quiet recovery. Every corridor, every staircase, every window pane reflected the duality of Downton's story, the elegance of the past intertwined with the weight of sacrifice and the courage of the present. The house had adapted, its walls absorbing both pain and hope, teaching those within that resilience is forged not in comfort, but in persistence. By the end of each day, as the sun dipped low over the Yorkshire countryside, Downton Abbey seemed to breathe with the lives inside it. The estate's legacy was no longer measured in silver, silk, or status. It was measured in recovery, compassion, and the human connections that had been nurtured within its halls. Soldiers left stronger, but also changed by the care and dignity they had experienced. Staff and the Crawleys left with hearts expanded, humbled by the quiet courage they had witnessed. Downton Abbey had not only survived this transformation, it had become something greater. It had become a testament to the strength of the human spirit. A place where, even in the shadows of suffering, hope and healing could flourish. As the war's echoes faded and the soldiers gradually returned to the world beyond Downton Abbey, the estate itself had changed forever. The grand halls and elegant rooms had witnessed more than parties or celebrations. They had witnessed courage, resilience, and the quiet power of human compassion. Beds were removed, curtains restored to their decorative purpose, and the estate began to return to its familiar rhythms. Yet, something intangible remained, a spirit of care and purpose that had seeped into every corner of the house. The memories of recovery, struggle, and triumph lingered like whispers along the corridors, reminding everyone that true greatness lies not in wealth or grandeur, but in the capacity to heal and nurture. The Crawleys, once defined by tradition and status, now carried a deeper understanding of leadership and responsibility. They had seen that nobility was measured in empathy, that a guiding hand and a listening ear could have more impact than power or privilege. Staff members, too, had grown in unexpected ways, discovering strength and resilience in themselves as they supported men whose courage was tested daily. Together, they had forged a new kind of community, one that balanced dignity with compassion and tradition with humanity. Downton Abbey had become more than an estate. It had become a sanctuary, a symbol of hope in a world recovering from immense hardship. Even the estate itself seemed to bear witness to its own transformation. The gardens, once solely ornamental, had felt the careful steps of recovering soldiers, now echoing with stories of patience and perseverance. The hallways, quiet but alive with memories, held the invisible imprints of courage and healing. Each room had been touched by human struggle and human triumph, reminding future generations that even the most luxurious spaces can hold stories of profound bravery and compassion. Downton Abbey had proven that its legacy was not built solely on grandeur, but on the lives it touched and the hope it nurtured. In the end, Downton Abbey's chapter as a convalescent home was not just a historical footnote, it was a testament to resilience, care, and the enduring human spirit. Soldiers left stronger, families of staff left wiser, and the estate itself stood as a silent guardian of all it had witnessed. Its halls, once echoing with music and laughter, now carried echoes of courage, healing, and quiet heroism. And though the chandeliers continued to shine and the gardens continued to bloom, the true light of Downton Abbey would always be measured in the lives it healed and the compassion it had shown. In its transformation, the estate became timeless, not only a home of the past, but a beacon of hope for generations to come.